podcast fam? Mike Palmer is one of the founders of The Knot, a climbing gym right here in Gainesville, Florida that quietly opened their doors earlier this year. After the Gainesville Rock Gym closed due to structural issues with the foundation, Mike and his business partner, Mitchell Edens, worked for 4 years to get a Gainesville climbing gym open. They've tripped over countless business hurdles to get here and somehow managed to open The Knot amidst a global pandemic. Their goal is to build a community around climbing with an eye on the future of the sport. Hear how he plans to climb to the top in this week's episode 168 of the WHOA GNV podcast. You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast for you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. I am your host, Collin, and today's episode is being brought to you because of my incredible friend, Taylor Williams. You guys, Taylor Williams is the creative director of Guts and Glory Creative Consulting. She helps companies improve their communication through coaching, workshops, and retreats. She also helps organizations look differently at problem solving through empathy, creativity, and innovative exploration. Taylor focuses on storytelling, branding, and relationships to advance company culture. Find out more by visiting gutsandglorycreativeconsulting.com. Again, that's gutsandglorycreativeconsulting.com. She is also at the helm of Guts and Glory GNV, a live storytelling organization right here in Gainesville. It's awesome. Go check it out. And since Taylor has a passion for communication and public speaking, she's continuing to share her work in her first book that just came out. It's called Beyond the Words: How to Conquer Your Fear of Public Speaking and Confidently Share Yourself with the World. That is like one of the top fears for a lot of people. So if you have a fear of public speaking, this is the book for you. You can get it and its incredibly long subtitle on Amazon, Kindle, and other places you get your books. The audio version of the book will also drop soon. Taylor, I love you. I'm grateful for your continuous support, for allowing me to speak in your podcasting class every semester. It's like one of the most fun things that I get to do, and just for being a great friend. So Taylor, thank you so much. And you guys, support my friend Taylor Williams. She's the best. Go check her out. Again, that was gutsandglorycreativeconsulting.com. And now let's get into today's episode. You guys, today on the show, we have Mike Palmer, founder and CEO of The Knot Climbing Gym. Mike, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited you're here.
Thanks, Collin. Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Glad to finally sit down with you.
Yeah, man. So I always like to kind of hear, the story, how things got kicked off. I've known you for a while. I know that you're in real estate as well. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to hear, man, how did you get into all of this?
Man, well, it's been kind of a long, crazy story. I first got into climbing way back when I was in Boy Scouts. I was 15 years old, growing up in Texas. And
where at in Texas?
Amarillo.
Okay.
It's that top little square part in the right center of that. And there's nothing else. 3-to-1 cows to people there.
Yeah, man. So I used to live in Clovis, New Mexico.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that.
We've had this conversation before.
No one else knows where any of this
that's where you would go to the airport. You'd go from, if you live in Clovis, New Mexico, you drive like the 2 hours or whatever it was to Amarillo to go to the airport.
Yeah, the best thing about Amarillo is trying to leave it.
All right, so that's where you kind of got your
that's where I first got exposed to climbing. It was this really cool, I was in Boy Scout troop, and they had access to that, and then I picked that up, and then I came to school at UF and got involved in the trip organization, which was to help kids kind of figure out how you get outside and help students lead trips outside. And with that came a membership to the climbing gym here, and this was 2003-ish. Basically, once I got involved in climbing at the climbing gym, I gave up on everything else relating to school. I stopped doing anything else and spent like 8 out of 10 weekends up in Chattanooga climbing instead of, doing all this other kind of other things you're supposed to be doing in school, and sort of transitioned into being a climbing hobo. Everything kind of, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on with the gym. The gym had really become a home for me at that time. And like all good climbers, at some point, you kind of decide, well, I can't live in Florida anymore, and you want to move out to Colorado and you go get some experience out there. a few years later, fast forward to, climbing taking me around the world and all kinds of stuff, I ended up back in Florida, and I'd kind of heard that there was some issues with the other gym. They had some structural issues with the foundation and then some other complicating factors, and so the gym had closed down.
How long had that gym been around?
That gym had been around since, I believe it was 2000. 99 or 2000 was around when they opened, and it was open until December of 2015 when they found the issue with the foundation. There was this group of people that were trying to get together and trying to figure out how to reopen and organize a gym, and I got involved with them. It was kind of one of those funny situations of, half the table was like, all right, who's got time to put into this? And I raised my hand. And who's got a little bit of money to put into this? And the other half of the table raised their hand, and I raised my hand. And so everybody looks at me as like, oh, you've got a little bit of time and money, so you go. And then after kind of working through that a little bit, that's when I got reintroduced to my partner in this, Mitchell Edens. He's been huge. It's been awesome to have him as part of this. And I cannot understate his importance to this thing, helping get it set up and helping get us started. He got involved with it, and the funny thing about Mitch is that we knew each other in college. We had one of my best climbing friends was one of his friends growing up, so we had this like mutual connection, and then kind of reconnected around this gym thing. And we started kind of trying. This was in 2016, 2017 when we started getting everything back together again, started laying plans, and really we're just trying to find places. So we spent about 3 years trying to find an actual place we could reopen the gym or even start a new one or do anything like that. And, we looked at everything. We were definitely kind of that classic entrepreneur that you kind of see early on that's got the best ideas, but doesn't really have that experience to back it up. Okay. And so I think a lot of people were like, man, that's really cool, but do you know what you're doing at all? And we're like, no, but we're going to figure it out. We've got other businesses and other things that we were doing. And then, eventually through the process, kind of all the stuff that was going on with the old gym settled down, and we heard it was coming up for sale. So we hopped on it. Around that, not long before that, I got my real estate license just for the sake of, I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. The real estate and the property for this thing was like the most important kind of key to making it happen. Wow. So
you literally got into real estate because of your passion for rock climbing and because you wanted to find a place and have just the real estate knowledge?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh my God, I totally didn't know. I mean, I would have thought that the real estate thing was like the full-time gig and that this was just, a side hustle, that passion that you were pursuing, but that's not the case at all.
No, it kind of flipped. I had, prior to all of this stuff I had been doing in part of my climbing hobo lifestyle, I got to do this, the hashtag van life and everything and really get into that. I got into that scene really hard for a long time, lived out of the back of my truck while I was also doing internet marketing. I had built a few of my own websites that would generate referral income. I'd move people from Google to eBay, and eBay would give me a couple bucks while I was hanging out climbing. There was points in my life where I was making about $1 an hour rock climbing, which, not a ton, but when you're being a hobo living in the back of your truck, that makes a lot. That's a big difference. So I did that for a while, and then, had kind of built up some passive income, and, that was going pretty well. And that's when we kind of...
Passive income being what? The websites? Or?
Yeah, the websites and stuff. And so they were just generating a little bit of income for me. And, it was kind of something I realized I didn't really love to do anymore. I didn't really you had to keep maintaining it and had to keep on top of all the changes of everything going on. I mean, with keeping on the changes with social media and keeping up with search engine algorithms and having to constantly update your website and this kind of stuff. And I just kind of got tired of doing that a little bit. That was, I don't know, I kind of went all over the place. I worked at a brewery for a while and then, set out to go do this and then ended up back in Florida and was like, well, now what do I do? And then we were going through this process, starting to set it up. And I was like, man, for what a realtor stands to make off of this property, I'm pretty good at test taking and I have time, so I might as well go ahead and get that taken care of, get that out of the way.
I don't know if I ever would have been like, let me get my real estate license.
Yeah.
I mean, so you did.
So I did, and that's been a surprisingly lucrative career on the outside of this, but yeah, it's been cool.
So are you doing the commercial stuff, or is it, is it primarily residential and then but you have the ability to do commercial, right?
Yeah. I had a lot bigger aspirations to do more commercial stuff. Commercial kind of takes a different kind of skill set and takes some more investment into starting up real estate around that, and really being able to sell commercial properties effectively. You've got to be paying for like CoStar and LoopNet and all these big like expensive monthly things. So that kind of, I don't know, that wasn't really the direction I ended up going. I've just been lucky to be able to pick up a bunch of friends that, are at, in your 30s, everybody's kind of in these life directions and changing. And so, I think I was just kind of right at the sweet spot where a bunch of my friends were like, well, now we're looking to settle down. Now we want to find a house. Well, my friend just bought a house, so maybe we should buy a house. Oh, we want to be in that neighborhood too. And I mean, this market for real estate has been, the last couple of years has just been crazy. Yeah. So, it's been a good time to be a realtor too. So, I mean, it helped you when it came to this commercial deal? Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, I would say Were you able to negotiate your own deal because of it? Completely. Okay. Yeah. That was, I had a, experience going through a couple other transactions, and, so I just went and was like, the second we heard this thing potentially coming available, I was like, here is an offer. Here's your offer. It's on the table. It's right here. It's fair. It's a good offer. You're probably not going to get much more than that, but I'm willing to be able to, Had the foundational issues been resolved at that point, or did you buy it with the foundational issues? Yeah, we bought it with the issues in place. So that's another thing that I guess I've kind of picked up in part of this is I've got a little bit of environmental engineering background from having to kind of like really jump in and learn how to make this stuff happen, because I honestly had no idea what I was doing. I'd say that's one of the biggest things throughout this whole process has been, I feel like I've kind of tripped over and maybe made every mistake or learned everything you can learn along the way through this. Yeah. We got into it. We found out about the foundation. It wasn't unfixable by any stretch of the imagination. It just kind of took some coordination and some big planning and that kind of stuff. And so we hopped into it. Honestly, the easiest part of this entire process was fixing the foundation. That was easy. Really? Yeah. I can plug foundation professionals in Lake City. They came in and went boom, boom, boom. 3 weeks later, the foundation's good to go. So why don't you think that the previous gym got it resolved? Well, I mean, so one of that, I think the biggest issue with that is it's kind of, sometimes people's lives sort of go different directions. I think what happened is they kind of got involved in it, or they saw that there was the issue. They started doing the research, and then it kind of seemed like there was as much of like a landlord-tenant dispute over who should do this and who should do what. And then there was also, I know, some other confounding factors that just made it take longer and longer and longer. And this is something I've kind of seen. Yeah, and it's something you kind of see every now and then with entrepreneurs hopping into things where, if you're not in what I would say is like one of the right life situations to be able to do that. I mean, to be able to ride 6 months without income and still support a family and still support everything going on, that can get very, very stressful for a lot of people. So I think after kind of a while, they just said, all right, I'm moving on, going on with my life. I've got to do what I want to do. And, for them, I think it was a little less of they kind of got into the business, and then started to love climbing, where, for me, the passion didn't fuel it. Right. Yeah. And so after a while, you kind of lose that. And I mean, it's hard enough as a business to work in your passion, yeah, where you're there all day long and it's like, oh man, I'm here for 12 hours today. Do I want to spend another 3-4 hours here just having fun? I mean, it's, it can be a little challenging even with things that you absolutely love and have dedicated your life to. So you're obviously passionate about it. Yeah. I mean, has it, I guess my perspective of it was kind of like a side hustle
That was my perspective, which is obviously not the case at all, right? So like, how have you made this work as a primary hustle, really getting it off the ground? I mean, you opened this year, right? At the beginning of this year, we're still kind of in this whole
the middle of the pandemic.
It's like, you know, all of this craziness, right? I mean, just how have you made it work so far? Have you been able to get a lot of memberships?
Yeah.
You know, what's been the process of just getting it launched, I guess?
Well, so, I mean, I do have to say, you know, one of the things I've been very, very lucky for, I don't know, I always like to look at what my privilege is. I think that's something, you know, we need to spend more time nowadays thinking about. And I was very lucky to, I guess lucky isn't always the right word, but my family, I came from a family that had some money, and then, you know, father passed and then grandfather passed. And so I had access to capital that I think a lot of other people didn't have access to. So I was kind of able to support myself a little bit through that and through the real estate thing kind of turning on. And that really changed things. I mean, the weird thing is that, you know, were it not for my father and grandfather passing, this would not have happened at all. So, you know, there's so much of what this is. Like they were, you know, my biggest cheerleaders to begin with too. And so, you know, them knowing that they helped make this thing happen, it would be very, you know, very good for them. And it was really a huge integral part of the story. They were the ones that kind of pushed me. Hey, I know you've got this crazy idea. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Keep trying to figure it out. Keep going through it. We'll do all this. And so it really became a story of just keep going, just keep swimming. You know, I mean, it was everything. I'm lucky I live a generally pretty cheap life. I have a nice little house that I own, that I don't have a lot of expensive bills and everything. And so I feel like it was I was kind of in that perfect situation to be able to just ride it out. Because, you know, I knew that Gainesville had climbing. I knew that people wanted climbing. I knew that climbing was in the Olympics and was getting more and more exciting. And I knew that, you know, a lot of people do find value in climbing. Like it brings so much to people from just a confidence standpoint, physical standpoint, community standpoint, that I knew it was going to do well. I didn't know how well it was going to do, which that's been surprising. But yeah, so we kind of were going through this, and it was kind of a slow process. We, at one point, to add a little bit more to this, at one point we also went through the process securing an SBA loan on you know, buying the real estate and doing all the renovations on the inside that we wanted to do to modernize the building, make it a little more kind of update what climbing is. Because, you know, if you'd been in the other climbing gym, you kind of knew that it was like a, you know, kind of foot smelling place, and it was kind of a dank, you know, kind of dark area, and it wasn't really as open and inviting as a lot of climbing gyms are nowadays. So it was really important for us to go through. We did a bunch of renovations to make it a little more, I don't know, accessible, if you will. Make it so that people like to be there. And then beyond that, so we were going through the process. We had Joyner Construction came in and did renovations for us. I can't speak to I guess I don't know how to say as highly recommend them as possible, because they just stayed on everything, and I know without them it would have been a nightmare. I've seen enough of these construction processes become nightmares, and we even ran into consistent issues and consistent hurdles through it. But, you know, having that kind of support was a big help. So we went through, we did the renovations. Let me back up a little bit. One of the interesting parts is that, you know, we had kind of gone through all these hurdles. We had organized bank financing for one thing, and then we get a contractor involved, and we're like, hey, how much is this going to cost? And our bid came back a whole lot more than we were expecting. So we go to that bank and we're like, hey,
can we get more?
Can we get more? And they're like, nope. And so that was like, oh crap, we've got to go figure out how we're going through this. We've got to go apply to other banks. Went back, applied to another bank. And, if you're going through the SBA process, it always takes, it's usually a month to 3 months to get a relationship with a bank.
Was that for the real estate itself?
We were lucky because we were able to do both.
Okay.
So the biggest part that
we're able to I guess that's kind of where I'm going is, you have all these like remodels and upgrades you want to do to the equipment. Were you able to kind of like wrap it into this whole loan for the mortgage and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So that was the biggest thing that made this happen. And, something I've tried to talk to other people who are doing these types of businesses that are, for us, the real estate is the most important thing. I can think of 3-4 climbing gyms, even just in Florida and around the country, that they closed solely because of landlord-tenant issues, not because there wasn't a successful business in it.
It's not like an easy business to move, right? I mean, if you go in there and you spend all this time and money, creating these awesome rock climbing walls, and then you have a disagreement or you have to move. It's a pain in the butt.
If not impossible. And that's a little bit of what happened to the other gym, was that they, you can't just pick up these walls and move them to some other location and it be fine. It takes a lot of work to make that happen. So you've really got to nail that part down. Was
that process of going through that? I always heard like SBA loans and stuff, like really long, very tedious process. Was that your experience too?
Yeah, it's about as invasive as going to a very, very thorough physical. I mean, they ask you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's they ask you everything. You have to fill out multiple forms. They ask you, you've got to put everything on the line. You've got to, do all of this stuff, answer tons and tons of questions. I mean, for us, if it weren't for the real estate, this wouldn't have happened. The banks don't like to, when you're going through the SBA process, like the banks don't like to lend on, especially if you're a new startup business. One, they don't like to lend to new
on
startup
hopes and
business.
Dreams.
Yeah, nobody lends on hopes and dreams. And so, that was a strike against us, was that we didn't have enough really experience, but throughout this process, we kind of realized that, I think we got a good deal on this real estate. I think if we renovate the building and do that, the building is going to be a good piece of equipment, a good, strong equity building tool for us. And the needs for us, it was very lucky because there was already a gym there. So our initial rebuild and equipment costs were not insane. I mean, we're not nearly as much as they would be if we were trying to build a full ground up brand new wall system and that stuff. So we went and, we spent a bunch of time. Mitch and I spent about 3 weeks jamming out to Steely Dan and repainting all of these walls in here ourselves and talking in British accents and probably annoying and freaking out everybody else who came into the place, just how weird we were getting with it. But, it was...
the effect of startup life.
Yeah. When you want to bootstrap something,
So, I mean, you said that, you were actually surprised at how well it was going. I mean, what's that based on? I mean, I'm sure memberships or like, did you guys set some original goals out the gate? You're like, all right, like we want to hit X number of memberships. What does a membership look like? How much does it cost? Please answer every question in one.
Okay, sure. So right now our memberships are $65 a month.
Okay. How did you price that?
So we actually had UFCMBA program do a pricing model for us. Okay. We had enough time going through this whole thing and the whole startup process that we got involved with Gator Nest, and they were a huge help. And so we had them kind of do some pricing. We had some thoughts about, where we needed to be and kind of looked at everything. I mean, we landed on the 65. 65 is the minimum that we need to be at just to make kind of a functioning business happen. And that's where they thought the market would work and all that kind of stuff. And so there was a bit of research behind that. But so I guess as far as why it's been so successful or what has constituted success for us, we're not officially open yet. We haven't had our official grand opening. We quietly opened in February. 2 2 text messages were sent out. One of them to the UFOAR group, I believe, and the other one to some other people who worked at REI. And
what do those stand for?
REI, Recreational Equipment Incorporated.
You said OAR?
I believe that's, I'm not 100% sure what that one is. It's UF. Yeah, Outdoor Adventure Recreation, something like that. The OAR is what I believe what Trip transitioned to, but you want to check that for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, UF Rec Groups is what it was. So
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, when we were there, it was Trip, and then now I believe it's OAR, and you can like rent gear and stuff with that.
Very cool.
With them there.
Okay.
So we sent out 2 text messages. I quietly let one of my buddies, he was there during construction and we were still trying to figure out stuff, and he kept showing up and had kept bugging me every single day. And so I was finally like, all right, I think we have our computer system set up, so now we can charge somebody. You're here all the time.
We're going to charge you.
All right, we're going to start charging you. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'm member 1. And
that's cool.
So he's super excited about that. And then from there, it just snowballed. I mean, we were getting person
just
after person after person, complete word of mouth. And one of the things that I think has been an interesting, we were because of COVID and everything, we were really hesitant to start trying to cram as many people into the place as possible.
Sure.
You got to be responsible with it nowadays, and you got to make sure you're approaching everything with some intention and thought.
Even when we put 90,000 students or 90,000 people into a stadium, still feel that way?
That's not my choice. Those are, I don't have to make those choices. No comment.
Okay.
So, but for this, we wanted to grow slowly. I really wanted to make sure that, because we've got to get people trained on ropes. I knew there was a critical mass of people that already wanted to do this, that I wanted to slowly grow our business. I didn't want to come in and, hit the ground running and get as many people in as possible. We had too many things with being too new of a business. And basically we had set up projections for the SBA, and we were like, all right, here's what we need to hit our goals. Here's where we think we can get to 3 years down the road. Fast forward.
Can you give us any specifics?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, the most specific I'd like to say right now is that, we had our goals for the SBA, and we hit our 3-year goal in about 4 months.
Good for you guys. That's awesome.
Crazy. Yeah, and it's been escalating since. I mean, That's
crazy.
Yeah, we are in desperate need of a new facility, desperate need of something bigger.
No.
Yeah, and I am already starting. I have ideas. But yeah, we really are in desperate need. And so when I say that,
but do you have a fear of that being like a honeymoon period? It's brand new, it's exciting, everybody's on it, but doesn't it come down a little bit at some point?
Yeah, we have fluctuations. I think, honestly, no, I'm not really worried about it being a honeymoon period.
Okay.
I've already kind of done the demographic research for what I think Gainesville could do as far as climbing gyms, and taken Gainesville and compared it to other cities, compared it to other places. Like Boise, Idaho is almost exactly similar to Gainesville as far as demographics concerned. They have,
and just to be clear, I wasn't trying to be like a Debbie Downer or anything.
No.
I'm just like, oh man, before you start looking for more places and growth, because you get so excited, right?
Yeah,
it's grow, and it's okay, but maybe we should. It sounds like you've done a good job of baby stepping it this far. It's I don't want to see it get tripped up with all the success.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I understand that. I just. We've done some of the research for the next phase already to kind of see where we're at. And I mean, I realistically think there's a much, much bigger gym out there. And we have a lot of goals and a lot of things that we'd like to see this business be able to do that we can't do in this size of facility. One of the big things with climbing is that it's a social activity as much as it is a fitness activity. Mm-hmm. And even the entertainment part, we're not super hey, come just do this one time and then never do it again. It's kind of, that's where, for us, a lot of what we do is managing risk, train people appropriately, get them learning how to be comfortable in the place. But we did the research, and I think there's, especially with climbing being in the Olympics now and the community aspect of it, it becomes for a lot of people, and this is what it was for me, and this is what it was for a lot of my friends during the time that I was, gave up on everything else and more or less moved into the climbing gym. I mean, it becomes that concept of third space. I mean, it really is. It's where all your friends end up. It's where you can just randomly go, and it's kind of one of the few things where you can hang out with people in Gainesville that you feel zero pressure to be drinking at, honestly. And so it mixes a lot of things, and it brings together a really crazy mix of people. And one of the things that opens us up for is being able to be a community service organization as much as anything. Trying to figure out how we get people who otherwise couldn't afford a $65 a month climbing gym membership into the gym. Because, as great as it is that, some people can come in and get a really good workout, there's kids out there that maybe, like in the Guardian Ad Litem program, that are, kind of stuck between life situations, and those life situations are really stressful and really heavy. And climbing is so engaging of a sport. You put a kid up on a rope and you get them climbing, they're not thinking about anything like that. They get a chance to be free from some of that.
Yeah.
Some of my friends, when we were going through the gym, their parents were, going through divorces and stuff like that, or they were through, in unstable families and things like that. And so a climbing gym gets to be your escape from all of that, and you get to be around all these people. And, that's a big part of what our mission and goal for this business is. We're just running into a situation where we're at capacity so many times, so many nights a week now, that we don't know how to fit more people in. We don't know how to do the good that we want to be able to do otherwise. And, that's
a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good challenge. It's a great problem to have, though, right? I mean, it's like, dude, when you have too much business and things are going too well, it's like, all right, that's definitely a great problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, we've really tried to manage it as much as we can. I don't know if you've seen these situations, or my internet marketing background kind of, I don't know, they hammered into the idea of me that when you're trying to chop down a tree, I think this is an Abraham Lincoln thing. When you're trying to chop down a tree and you've got 4 hours to do it, you spend your first hour sharpening the axe, so that you get that right and capture everything and make sure you're doing the best you can with it, instead of just, kind of blindly promoting and just saying, all right, hey, let's get as many people as we can, and just whacking away at a tree with a dull blade and not making any progress.
Is that the quote? I feel like the quote is something along the lines of, if you have 4 hours, you're spending like the first 3 hours sharpening.
Yeah, 3 hours seems like a lot of time to sharpen an axe.
Can we get a check on that quote, an Abe Lincoln quote? But yeah, like I think that's the point, is that you're gonna spend more time sharpening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and our for us the climbing experience.
Am I right?
And if you only had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening my axe.
Okay, so if you only had an hour to chop down a tree, you're gonna spend the first 45 minutes sharpening the axe. Yeah.
Yeah, so
that is powerful.
Yeah, and so for us, the way that
Mike and I here are taking 4 hours to chop down a tree. Obviously, everybody. Well, it ain't coming down in an hour. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, we should probably spend more time working out.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but yeah, I mean, for us, it was really important to try and make sure that we're giving people a good membership experience, trying to give people value within it, and not just having people walk in and everybody look at them with like deer in the headlights, like, we don't know what to do with these 900 people that are here that are like, we all need something right now. How do we handle this and that and this and that?
Yeah, so is there those opportunities for me to, like, could I expose my kids to climbing for the first time and bring them in for a one-time session? Is this kind of stuff available, or will it be available? Or because you're at capacity, you're like, nope, we have all the memberships we have.
That's kind of the hard part, is that, you know, we've looked at the model a little bit differently, or been trying to do something a little bit different with the model, experimenting with it. All of our members have a guest pass, and all of our members can get $10 bonus passes. So because climbing is, you know, requires some training to be able to get in and do the ropes and stuff like that, we would really prefer for people to come with a member. We really promote come with a member. And when we did our research, about 80% of people are already getting into climbing with a member. And so, you know, I think it kind of like serves a lot of our bigger mission for it to be a community-oriented place, so that people aren't just walking in and have no idea, no point of reference, no frame of reference for what they're doing, nobody to ask questions to. But if you bring a friend, you're like, oh, hey, what is this? What am I doing? What is this thing? Because there's all kinds of like little things on, you know, how to not just look like a brand new person, because nobody wants to be that brand new person when they're doing stuff. I don't know if you've ever tried to like go skiing or snowboarding, but like that first day on the mountain, if you just try and go, is like the most painful experience. And so we're trying to make that a better experience for people.
It's the most painful later that night too, when you're trying to recover.
And the plane ride home and everything. I
mean, this is really interesting stuff, man. So tell me, you know, besides like the capacity issues, the quick growth, I mean, as much of a challenge as that is, and a great challenge, right? I mean, what else has, you know, through this journey of startup life, entrepreneurship, has just really stood out as, you know, being this prominent challenge that you've had to face?
I think honestly, some of the biggest challenges have been maintaining some of that personal motivation within things going through this process. I mean, we hit all kinds of things during this. In that time, my father died going through this process. He had pretty serious cancer, and so there was a whole cancer treatment going on. And then the next year, same January the next year, my grandfather got sick, and he passed that year. Mitch, during this process, I mean, he got married during this process, and then had a new baby during the process, right before we were starting construction. And then they had some other, you know, family member illnesses and stuff. And so, you know, maintaining that psych and motivation for an ideal through all of these challenges and all of these hurdles has definitely been kind of like a big theme. I mean, I'll keep saying, you know, just keep swimming has been like our kind of mantra throughout all of this.
Was there anything that you were doing to kind of help with that? You know, like, I don't know if you meditate or you
little bit of meditation, a little bit of running, and then a lot of
climbing. A lot of climbing.
Honestly, not at all.
Really?
You know? Yeah, that was kind of one of the hardest parts, was that, you know, without there already being a climbing gym here, I didn't really have
a place.
I didn't really have my outlet for it. And I knew there were so many other people with that same kind of like lack of an outlet and stuff. But I don't know. It's just really one of these things that, I don't know, when you get into climbing, and one of the things people see nowadays is they've seen the movie Free Solo with Alex Honnold, where he starts climbing Yosemite, or climbing El Cap in Yosemite, and it's about 3,000 foot cliff, and he climbs it without a rope. And one of the things, if you're doing that kind of climbing, you really have to know you're going to get to the top. You have to be committed. I mean, and especially for us, once we had kind of gotten to a certain point, there was no other option for us than to just keep going, because, you know, I mean, as crazy as it is, no matter how hard it is during the climb, eventually it's going to get easier. Eventually you're going to get to the top. Eventually you get over all of these crazy hurdles, all these crazy things that have kind of like stopped it from just already kind of running and being a process. And I mean, knock on wood, you know, whatever, I actually really finally feel like we've like kind of started to crest that top, and we've kind of started to see like, wow, okay, this is a business that people really like. I mean, they've responded really well to it. we've finally checked off one of our last big construction projects, which was, we suddenly had to install a sprinkler system in a building that was already during a business while we were running.
What, just to get it to code? Was that a code thing or no?
Yeah, it was code.
Fire sprinkler is what you're talking about?
Yeah. It was to get it to code, but it was because, in me not knowing what I was doing, I didn't think to ask the company we bought a new wall from whether or not this new wall was fire rated. And it turns out it wasn't. And we had to do all the testing and we had to figure that out. And so, the only real way for us to not have to spend a bunch of money taking something out and just throwing away a ton of wood and a ton of paint and a ton of time and effort was to just put a sprinkler system in instead. It was going to be not much more expensive, but was about as expensive, a little bit more expensive. So
won't make that mistake again, will you?
Nope. And
I guess that's the benefit, right? I mean, you always hear about like the small failures throughout the process, and like you're never going to make that mistake again. You're going to remember this experience and you'll learn from it. And I think every entrepreneur can relate to that exact feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I've never heard an entrepreneur that hasn't hit hurdle after hurdle. I once heard it described as the trough of sorrow, where initially there's this everybody's super excited about the idea and everything's going great and you think it's going to work. And that's where we were, 3 years ago. I had this big vision of this huge gym that was just everything to everybody and was perfect. And I was so excited about it. And then going through research, realized that's not really feasible. That's not really going to work. Okay, so maybe we're down here and then you crest that peak and then you start going towards the trough where it's like, man, is this actually ever going to be a thing? Is this something that's going to happen? When is this going to happen? I have no idea. I don't know. Is there even a timeline for it? I mean, I'm committed. I'm doing this. And then you're just dealing with the trough and you're dealing with it and you're dealing with it and you're dealing with it and dealing with it. And then you sort of start to see these little glimmers of oh wow, okay, we were really lucky because right when there was that lull in COVID last year, in sometime in the springtime, we call up the bank. They had put us on pause because they're like, are you even going to be able to run a business? And so that lull came in and we're like, hey, let me pitch you on Gainesville. Gainesville's going to do really well during this. It's a tech market. It's got a lot of healthcare. It's got a lot of students, blah, 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 blah. And then they were like, all right, cool. We'll let you go. And then they let us get started on construction. And that's where I felt like we started climbing out of the trough. It's like, wow, this is going to be a real thing. This is going to be a thing. And then, obviously things went the way they did. And so, we finally got up that trough and then there's a little bit more like, this is still some work. And then, now it feels like we're kind of getting through that. And I think the only thing that has really helped is just, being committed to the idea and just saying, this is what I'm doing.
That's great. I'm gonna basically end it on that note, man, because I think, in the game of entrepreneurship, it reminds me of a saying one of my best friends has always just put in my ear. And it was like, hey, to get to the top of the next mountain, you got to go through the next valley. Yeah. And so it's exactly what you just said, right? And I think in the game of entrepreneurship, you're always going to have that. You're going to have the ups and the downs, and you just got to hang on to that why. Like, why did you get into it? What's your purpose? Like, what's the mission behind it? And just hold on to that and just keep persevering through, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Which is way easier said than done a lot of the time. I know from experience of going through this pandemic myself in this business, but yeah, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Collin.
It's super
thanks for
cool
having
hearing
me.
about the business, man. I look forward to seeing the next location.
Yeah. I got an idea
already, thinking it through.
I got an idea, but we'll see if that happens.
To checking it out, man. So tell our audience where they can connect with you, where they can find you guys on social media or website, whatever.
Yeah, well, so that's been the crazy thing. We haven't really been posting much on social media. We've kept super quiet. I know this is kind of circling back, but I've been amazed by how much people seem to love to be able to be somebody that shares information with people. If you want to follow us, we're going to be back on social media soon. We're going to start showing what's going on in the gym. We're on climbthenot.com. Our Instagram is at climbthenot, facebook.com/climbthenot.
Really quick, where did you come up with the name?
So that was a buddy and I, John Rager, who was one of the most integral people. He's the guy that pushed me to get into this. But the knot represents a couple things for us. It's kind of the most important thing. If you're on a rope, you got to make sure that knot is tied correctly. But it's also kind of symbolic to the community of climbing, that it's like all these people interwoven together and that kind of stuff. And so we felt like it really fit with the community and climbing perspective.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was like, Sarah and I were kind of talking about that before the show. I was like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I know like knots are important when it comes to climbing, but like, is it the most vital part, or like, I didn't know. So I was like,
it is.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks,
Collin. And thank you to James Leitner, Sarah Linz, who's finally back. You guys, she's been gone all summer. She's finally back. And to our new intern team, Trinity, Gianna, and Noah, for all of your hard work. Super grateful for you guys. And podcast fam, remember, you can find all the links to our incredible sponsors at whoagnv.com/sponsors. And we drop a link in the show notes of this episode. So definitely check that out. You guys, we got to give special love this episode to my friends over at The Best Restoration. You guys, I cannot say enough great things about Jorge and the team at The Best Restoration. They have been a supporter of this show all year long. You have to have friends on your side when those disasters happen, when that toilet overflows and when that pipe bursts in the wall, or if you're like us and you move into a building that is full of mold, definitely hit up The Best Restoration. I can speak firsthand to the quality of their work. They've helped us out here at the dealership so many times. With their certified techs and state-of-the-art equipment, these guys are the masters of disaster. Give them a call at 352-505-3321. That's 352-505-3321, or visit them at thebestrestoration.com. And when you call them, be sure to say, I heard you on the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go,
whoa.
Whoa. We will see you later. Bye.